Od samog početka kao industrijski dizajneri smo se bavili jako puno prostorom, interijerima, izložbama, slično. I ono što je u teatru, što je najzanimljivije što smo otkrili, a to je ta silna sloboda koja se teško danas može naći u sferi dizajna i interijera, arhitektura.
Bei den ersten Bühnenbildern habe ich eigentlich noch gar nicht mitgearbeitet. Bin dann erst eingestiegen bei dem ersten großen Bühnenbild für ein spanisches Theater in Madrid. Und da habe ich erkannt, dass man wesentlich freier und wesentlich experimenteller mit Raum und räumlicher Gestaltung umgehen kann, als wir das bisher bei Innenarchitektur und bei der Gestaltung von Ausstellungen gemacht haben.
Naš interes za rad u kazalištu je u velikoj mjeri povezan s činjenicom da nismo imali prethodnih iskustava u teatru, a i naš background kao industrijskih dizajnera nam je dao dovoljno sposobnosti za rad u nekim interdisciplinarnim timovima, tako da smo bili spremni za slušanje ljudi koji dolaze iz drugih struka, a s druge strane nismo bili opterećeni kazališnim stereotipovima koji se nameću i koji predstavljaju neke standarde za rad u kazalištu. Iz tog razloga većina scenografija zapravo se referiraju jedne na druge, a ta svježina koju smo mi donijeli iz nekog realnog svijeta koji se bavi upotrebnim proizvodima je bilo upravo ono što su ljudi u teatru i tražili od nas. I na tim osnovama zapravo u velikoj mjeri leži uspješnost našeg bavljenja teatrom.
For Numen, theatre is a play world. Compared to the profit-oriented field of industrial design, it offers a platform for experimentation and excess, freed from the constraints of functionality, durability, and mass production. Simultaneously, directors who find infusions of foreign expression into the theatre beneficial, rather than threatening to their own work, take interest in Numen, as even their most conservative set designs are hardly based on theatrical conventions and demonstrate essentially extrinsic education, strategies and focuses.
Nama je rad u kazalištu omogućio da riješimo se nekih ograničenja koje smo postavljali pred sebe, budući da smo jednostavno profesionalno odrastali na radovima visokog modernizma koji je uključivao veliko poštivanje za tehnologiju, za materijal, za funkcionalnost. U velikoj mjeri smo bili opterećeni tim nekim pravilima koji smo sami sebi nametnuli, a rad u kazalištu nam je omogućio da se oslobodimo tih stvari i na neki način da potaknemo jednu fantaziju koja je nedostajala u našem radu.
To counteract the common positioning of set design as something less essential or naturally subservient to the actual staging and directing of the theatre piece, Numen places visual and spatial concepts at the very root of the creative process. This authorial tendency, if allowed to escalate, results in universal visual and spatial solutions, a veritable dramaturgy of space, able to synergize with a variety of different dramatic texts, or even inspire the writing of its own narrative. An aspect of methodology of design, which has, for Numen, proved most assisting in their work in the theatre, was the priority of the purified concept, as well as the tendency for formal abstraction of the set, all in accordance with the core essence of the text and the final synesthetic experience of the play. The narrative-based scenography had to give way to a clear idea. The text had to be illustrated or interpreted through a single cardinal gesture and freed from the ties of contextualization and subjectivity. Purification of an idea by way of minimalist reduction renders a gesture directly, almost viscerally communicable to the audience. And the clarity is what Numen find essential for the fluency of apprehension. Summoning the inherent charge of the text into one sole principle demands the elimination of props and everything else which might dilute the primal quality of the concept and diminish the pure intensity of the idea. A slightly paradoxical situation for, by vocation, industrial designers to insist on the obsoleteness of furniture on the stage. Yet only when nothing particularizes the stage set or nails it down to a certain period or context can the theatrical space truly become archetypal, universal, timeless. In the primordial desert there can be no chair, or can there?
Pogotovo prvi put kad radimo sa nekim redateljem, onda se moramo jako boriti za to da izbacimo sav namještaj sa scene, jer su redatelji od početka naviknuti na to da koriste na probama stolove, stolice koje se nađu čak u probnim salama, da ih koriste za rješavanje nekih mizanscena. I onda uvijek prema kraju proba pokušavamo izbacivati sve više i više tih rekvizita dok na kraju ne očistimo sve scene. I sa redateljima s kojima već radimo duže vremena, s njima je to naravno već uhodan proces i oni to znaju, a sa novima je stvarno borba.
In their Numen Light project, Numen used spyglass as means for experimenting with geometric spatial nets outlined by beams of light. The focus was primarily on the study of perception, spatiality and perspective. Depending on the position of the light source, first in the line of objects is perceived as either an enigmatic reflective cube or a vertiginous display of an orthogonal neon grid collapsed into the depths of infinite multiplication. A virtual abyss unlocked by purely analog means. The hypnotic impact of the open perspectivist expanse instills awe into the observer, who is instantly removed from the safety of actuality and plunged through the looking glass into the endlessness of the hypergrid. The basic perceptual determinants of up and down disappear, and the sense of physical reality, marked primarily by the possibility of orientation, is replaced by the anxious view into the void filled up with illusion. The very heart of the vanishing point and its spectral infinity of the same. After tracking down the anxious perspective hidden inside the cube, Numen furthered their research towards more complex, non-orthogonal geometries of convex regular polyhedra, the Platonic solids, again cast in neon trace spyglass. These objects, when lit, produce images that function as ideograms for non-Cartesian definition of space, in which the vanishing points are multiple and elusive, with the primary form of each solid projected ad nauseam, creating fractal light graphics. The result is flattening of the Cartesian depth of field, characteristic of the cube, into a surface phenomenon of psychedelic ornamentation. Octahedron was the first in the line of complexity to produce completely chaotic, impossible grids.
Diese Version von Numen Light besteht aus 3 Spionspiegeln, hier, hier und hier, und 3 Spiegel sind aus Folienspiegeln. Und zwar, diese Folienspiegel liegen auf dieser Ebene und dieser Ebene. Hinter diese Folienspiegel sind Boxen oder Kammern gebaut, und in diese Kammern pumpen wir mit diesem Blasebalg Luft hinein oder ziehen Luft heraus. Dadurch deformieren sich diese Folienspiegel entweder konvex oder konkav. Und da diese Folienspiegel in allen 3 Dimensionen angeordnet sind, verändert sich ebenfalls das gesamte Innenleben dieser Spiegelungen.
Yo aquí transformo el tiempo en espacio para ti.
What started as a wonder object of condensed and surreal depth, now expanded in size to form a supernatural architectural set for the theatre play, which suitably thematizes a virtual location in the afterlife.
Posebno na scenografiji za Inferno je bilo to što je ona site specific. Gradila se 3 tjedna u potpuno zatvorenom kazalištu i koristilo se pravo staklo, što je rezultiralo savršenom kristalnom odrazu. Međutim, scenografija se nije mogla nikako preseliti, turirati. U kazališnom žargonu postoji taj pojam četvrtog zida, što je imaginarna fiktivna pregrada između glumca i publike. U Infernu smo mi taj četvrti zid, koji je nematerijalni kazališni pojam, materializirali. Kako bi publika mogla vidjeti u tu zatvorenu pozornicu, taj zid je morao biti providan i jednosmjeran. Glumac nije ni mogao ni vidjeti, ni čuti publiku. I zato je, da bi profunkcionirala cijela predstava, morao i sound ići preko mikrofona.
The entire stage with actors is now caught in an endless play of reflections that turn the mise en scène into a disturbing mise en abîme, shining luminously in bright Luciferian neon. Spyglass mirror, acting as the front wall of the cube, separates the encapsulated stage from the voyeurist audience, which the actors now cannot see, facing instead their own multiplied image. A similar effect of liquefied space and simulated expanse was achieved by more modest means in the set designed for the boat for dolls, in which identical objects in various scales were arranged into the depth of field, resulting in either inverse perspective or in the hypertrophied perspective of the optical illusion. The size relations of the actors and the objects on the stage depict the process of growing up of the central character in the play. So as she grows older, the props become increasingly smaller. Various dispositions of white tables in the black theatre box shift the perception angle of the audience, while the more complex compositions serve to evoke specific contexts demanded by the scenario.
Za razliku od ostalih scenografija gdje smo sklanjali namještaj, smo ovaj put izradili cijelu scenografiju od objekata. U takvom slučaju je bilo bitno da je namještaj univerzalan, da je arhetipski i da je lišen svake stilske konotacije.
To spom tega prehajanja sem.
Jaz pa ne. Jaz sem največ tu.
To je zato, ker jo občuduješ.
Ja, in?
Jaz je niti malo ne občudujem.
Starting from the stacked position at the beginning, depicting the birth of the protagonist, the archetypal and basic elements of tables and chairs are rearranged by the actors to serve as walls, floors, stairs, classrooms, or trees. Rhythmical space and the richness of setting are achieved by the understated sufficiency of a minimalist gesture. Another major aspect of Numen's treatment of set design is the control dynamics of the scenographic object, which, by way of simple strategies such as replication, variation, mirroring and montage, creates the multifaceted scenery able to adequately assist or channel the progression of the performance. Such proper choreography of space and volumes is often achieved through the use of a single element, animated into various configurations, with all the advance and action based solely on its kinetics, layering, transformation and flux. One of the key features of a genuine theatrical space is its ability to smoothly mutate into a plethora of dispositions, providing the actors with a diversity of mise-en-scène, which allows for the spatial maneuvering to develop. Understanding different technologies and modes of manipulating objects, light, space and vision, which are crucial aspects of the design domain, further helps in working in the theatre.
Prva verzija Heiner Millerovog kvarteta sam trebalo raditi u HNK u Zagrebu i ideja je bila potencirati naboj teksta na način da se povećava klaustrofobija. Tako da se iz jednog praznog prostora polagano skušnjavanjem dobiva sve manji prostor do kraja kad nestane sav prostor, koji poždere protagoniste na taj način.
For the ballet performance Symphony of Sorrowful Songs, Numen used elements of generic theatrical infrastructure, in this case legs and borders, to create a set design which at the same time complements and minimally interferes with the movement of the dancers. Leaving enough room for choreography is an essential aspect of scenographic approach to ballet, suggesting the use of surfaces rather than volumes, as well as restricted spatial projection. In this setting, the standard elements of legs and borders are animated into a synchronized movement. The result is a mesmerizing sequence of dynamic formations offset by the background. Background changes from brightly lit to black, depending on the illumination of the moving panels. These are made of thin planks of old wood, attached to the aluminium substructure. The entire process is coordinated by computer software, allowing for a synchronized and seamless movement of all separate elements, which thus appear as a single mechanism, revealing complex kinetic forms in a choreographed continuity. The layering of the moving elements facilitates switching between scenes, montage cuts, as well as entrances and exits of the dancers.
simfoniju tužnih pjesama smo imali poseban problem u materijalu panela. Pandur je sve vrijeme zapravo tražio to neko drvo, te neke skele, te neku Rusiju i na kraju se to pokazalo kao jako dobro rješenje, ali onda je bio tehnički problem u tome gdje naći staro drvo. Da bi onda cijela potraga bila cijelom Evropom po tom drvu, da bi našli preko interneta jednu agenciju koja prodaje rabljeno drvo i onda se to moralo rezati na te tanke ploče da se ne bi previše opterećivala električni cugovi, međutim na kraju je rezultat bio izvanredan.
In zerrissenen Bewusstseinsströmen. Die Zeit an sich, die objektive Zeit, wird nicht aufgehoben, sondern emporgehoben und in eine neue Dimension künstlerischen Sinns überführt, in das intuitive Gefühl einer künstlerischen Wahrheit. Denn dies ist die Harmonie der Welt, wie sie vorgefunden und in einem kurzen Bühnenaugenblick gedehnt herübergerettet wird. In einer kurzen Geschichte der Zeit.
The theme of illusion, exploited to the extreme on the set of Inferno, resurfaced again in the scenography Numen designed for Dangerous Liaisons, a famous dramatic exercise in Rococo-era frivolousness. While the drama was initially written for the theatre, with the two film adaptations in themselves substantially theatrical, the play envisaged by Numen is an almost cinematical affair. An effect which was achieved by using footage from last year in Marienbad and a fluid montage delivered through stage kinetics and scene merging. The fascinating aspect of mirrors, which are all about surface, about appearances, self-indulgence and lack of substance, is their power of opening to infinity, of deconstructing space into a panorama of reflections and blending truth with mirage. Residing at the touchpoint of narcissism and duplicity, the mirror metaphor perfectly summates the key aspects of the narrative.
U ovoj scenografiji je bilo interesantno koristiti ogledalo, pošto taj zrcalni odraz automatski asocira na tu površnost, nematerijalnost, više značnosti i taj nedostatak težine, jer je to korespondiralo savršeno sa ključnim elementima priče koja se bazirala uglavnom na dinamici narcisoidnih protagonista i njihovih dvorskih intriga, tim lažima, dvoličnim ponašanjima i afektacijama.
For this set design, 5 rotating reflective panels were arranged in 2 rows into the depth of the stage. The triangular floor plan was framed by 2 projection screens, placed behind the panels so as to be only partially visible. The rotating mirrors serve to divide the space mechanically, but also dissolve it through a play of reflections, depicting kaleidoscopic imagery of a Baroque palace. The result was an elusive spectacle of shifting surfaces, movement and light. The quality of all Numen's set designs, installations and objects is their potential to throw the unsuspecting observer, the passive consumer of the spectacle, out of their daily balance and into the state of heightened sensitivity, which then opens up a force field of influence and interaction. The ability to cause estrangement, disbalance or punctum is crucial for the effective impact of every effort attempting to fuse the tricks of perception, memory and fantasy into a particular spatial composition. The style of Numen projects is often impersonal and precise, unsentimental and puristically severe, yet possessing certain ceremonial epiphany, conjuring up the deep structure, the metaphysics of their work.
Ključna stvar koju smo htjeli dočarati u scenografiji za Medeju je taj magijski moment, ta magija Medeje, taj aksis mundi, crna traka koja ide u svemir, koja spaja zemlju i nebo, koja je za publiku ima nevidljivi kraj, a mi smo je digli pomoću helijevog cepelina na cirka 60 metara visine. To je jedna epifanija i taj trik koji publiku opčarao je bilo dovoljno jako da preživi tu snažnu antičku pozadinu.
When working on a particular text, Numen posit a notion of an equivalent idea form, similar to Plato's ideal, a primary form of which the literary or other source is merely a shadow. The noumenal aspect of the phenomenal realm, the absolute and latent quality of matter, is what waits to be recognized, expressed, extracted. Their projects thus become means of realizing thought or emotion in an optical, material way.
Prva ideja za simfoniju tužnih pjesama se bazirala na početnom nazivu predstave, a to je Short History of Time, bazirano na Stephenu Hawkingu, i tu smo se bavili odnosom prostora i vremena i nekom potencijalnom materializacijom te ideje. I ono do čega smo došli je napetost elastične tkanine, kod koje se tek otvaranjem te knjige zapravo formira jedna forma koja je na neki način savršena jer proizilazi iz napetosti unutar materijala, i to nam je bila ideja najbliža slici wormhola, crnih rupa i općenito tih zagonetki viših dimenzija.
William Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream is dramaturgically divided into 3 clearly discernible parts, which form the framework of the storyline. The beginning and the end are situated within the boundaries of the city, in the real world, where human and civil laws apply, while the central part takes place outside the walls, in the mythical territory of the woods. Reality is what happens in broad daylight, in front of the closed theatrical curtain, which separates facts from illusions, in the ordinary world of the audience. This is the domain of the city. As the story develops, the lights are diminished. A mechanism holding the curtain stripes in front position slides back, and the fabric of the fourth wall softly dissolves into an enchanted night forest. The audience is now lurking behind the portal and into the black box, into the oniric darkness of the woods, where magic reigns and strange things come to pass.
I sam taj trenutak tranzicije iz stvarnog u sanjano je ono što je zapravo pokrenulo cijelu scenografiju, rastakanje kazališnog zastora koji odjeljuje predstavu, sadržaj sna i teatra samog od svakodnevice u kojoj se nalazi publika je ono što je na kraju bio jedini faktor cijele predstave, jedini element u kojoj se radi cijela scenografija.
Again, only one element, the curtain, is used to create depth of field, mobility and functionality of the setting, allowing the actors and acrobats a range of activities while retaining the purity of intervention. The audience, transfixed by the unfolding of the shifting fabric, cannot but surrender to the allures of the forest and lose their way forever somewhere on the thin line between dream and reality. From the motive of theatrical curtain as means to produce all necessary forms and situations required by the play, but leaving the standard relation between the stage and the audience intact, Numen moved on to overturn that basic principle in Circus d'Estetica, where the audience is placed in the centre, surrounded by the circular stage and closed off by the curtain, with the actors expelled on the outer ring of the theatre capsule into the real.
Scenografija za Cirkus d'Estetiku je bazirana na dva postulata. Jedno je inverzija antičkog teatra, a drugo je kabare kao neki oblik satire koja se zapravo bavi sa društvenim stereotipovima i pokazuje svu njihovu apsurdnost, što je kontekstualno sasvim opravdano budući da se radi o tekstovima Daniela Harmsa, avangardnog pjesnika i pisca iz Rusije koji je zapravo cijeli svoj život proveo boreći se sa staljinističkim režimom.
The archetypal red velvet theatre curtain, surreal in the open landscape and always framing random and transitory parts of the exterior, is completely closed at the beginning of the play, only to progressively open on various sides of the ring, forcing the audience to turn around for each following scene. In the finale, the curtain opens entirely, leaving the viewers in the center of the circus, exposed to the 360 degrees horizon.
Taking a trip off, you step down, the planet to jump at 3.
This set design is a self-sufficient, freestanding object, apt for use in the same form at any given space, yet always providing impermanence and novelty brought about by the fluctuations of the environment. The idea for staging Ovid's Metamorphosis emerged from a theoretical concept of a set design for the unspecified imaginary dance performance. The reasoning was this: if each dancer would leave behind them a material tape trail of their progression through space, the final scenography for a dance performance would also be a map of its choreography, with all its trajectories coexisting simultaneously, a web of movement frozen in time. Dancers would literally build the fabric of the scenery on stage with their own hands, evoking through this labour the very origins of the world and the myth of creation. Through persistent weaving of the delicate, fragile structure, its vertical spiraling reminiscent of the Tower of Babel, what is demonstrated is the essential human strife towards heaven, comprehension, knowledge.
Inicijalna ideja selotepa se onda razvila dalje u skulpturalno-arhitektonsku formu koja se stvarala više manje samo od sebe i našli smo je samo od sebe kroz stezanje. Tako da jednodimenzionalni selotep kao linija se polako pretvara u dvodimenzionalnu plohu koja se onda zakrivljuje u volumen.
The installation was envisaged as a site-specific parasitical structure, invading an arbitrary location. The straight lines of main trajectories are stretched across a given area, and these tendons are then wrapped diagonally with layers of elastic tape, giving shape to a complex organic form, through a process similar to the emergence of such structures in nature.
A Croatian gallery asked us to make an exhibition, and so we said, okay, let's try to make it in large scale. And what it turned out to be an oversized, not uninteresting sculpture, but it was, let's say, just a sculpture. But at the end of this presentation, we thought, let's try to go in and maybe it carries us. And we were surprised, it's really strong. And from that moment on, we knew that we can make it so strong, this whole thing, that more people can go inside.
With the further layering of the tape, the figure becomes more and more corporeal as it picks up on the slow increase of the curvature. The interior of the structure is supple, elastic and pliable, while the form itself is statically perfect, as it ideally follows the trajectories of forces, being literally defined by them. In the moment when the audience enters the installation, what started off as a sculpture seamlessly morphs into architecture. The ephemeral quality of the object, combined with the strangeness of the unfamiliar context and the pervading sense of all the work involved in its creation, is what instantly overwhelms all the participants in the happening.
Naš rad bitno karakterizira unutarnji sukob. U svim projektima, ne samo kazališnim, s jedne strane pokušavamo postići maksimalnu dozu reda, smisla, poretka, a s druge strane pokušavamo pobjeći od tih zadanih formi. I teatar je mjesto u kojima se te stvari mogu dovesti na jednu puno višu razinu nego druga područja djelovanja unutar sfere dizajna.
In der Arbeit als Bühnenbildner haben wir, glaube ich, sehr viel Erfahrung gemacht, was den experimentellen Umgang mit räumlicher Gestaltung betrifft. Und es war im Endeffekt der Grund, warum wir dann jetzt weitergegangen sind in wesentlich noch experimentelleren Umgang mit Raum und zu diesen Art von Installationen, die wir jetzt machen.
Od uvijek nam je bilo zanimljivo primjenjivati iste principe rada i metodologije kroz različite medije. Istraživati ih i istraživati ono što je između. Sada trenutno smo na filmskom setu koji ima sasvim druga pravila od kazališta, a opet jako puno zajedničkih točaka. To je ono što nas je uvijek najviše interesiralo i nadam se da ovo nije posljednji film.